So imagine a world in which we stop looking at how we're different.
And instead, shine the spotlight on the similarities we share.
And so we're two people who are connected.
Mother, daughter.
And so we really think that this is an idea worth talking about, worth sharing, as well as if you are willing to do this, that it could potentially change your life in a positive way and all the people that you work, live, and play with. So I'm Maureen Keane. I'm a baby boomer. I'm a coach, consultant, and college professor.
I'm Abbey Keane. I'm a millennial, a sales manager, and an aspiring business owner.
Okay. Married.
Single, but would like to be married.
Sometimes I'd like to be single. I'm married and I have 4 kids and 4 grandkiddos, like and love them all.
No kids yet, 1 dog. I love Motown music and Lady Gaga.
And so do I. And so Abbey and I have differences of opinion, and we feel differently about some things, whether it might be politics or books or what's a healthy food, what to wear on date night, where to go, and so on. But we have a lot of things in common, and when we find that we focus on those commonalities, we end up really strengthening our relationship, the foundation of our relationship. We find connections.
And so here's the challenge for everyone. Look for the connections between generations, political and religious ideologies, cultures, gender, and race.
And when we do that, what we find out, a lot of positive benefits. It does things like it reduces confrontations. We sometimes eliminate conflicts. We end up understanding each other better. We have fun conversations. We have fun. We like each other. And by the way, it's free. And so I like to call this the human Venn diagram, what we have in common. And I haven't used that since junior high math, but I'm going to put it out there right now.
And so by focusing on what we have in common, we will promote unity, acceptance, and understanding. There's also overall improvements to our health and well-being. More good news on this is that when people from different backgrounds come together, they often find that their similarities outweigh their differences. And so our call to action here is to approach every day to seek first to understand, then to be understood.
And so we only have 18 minutes here. We want to start right now. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to turn to the person that's next to you, whether you know them or not, and I'm going to ask you to try to find something you have in common with them. Now, if you're stuck, I've got some prompts up here, okay?
Ready, set, go!
Go. Okay, time's up. Time's up. Okay, how'd that go? Okay, how many of you found something in common?
Okay, I think our job here is done. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, not so fast. There are actually a lot of connections that we can find with each other, but we've selected some research that will suggest maybe there are some very fundamental foundational ones, and that's what we're going to be talking about for the next several minutes here today. And so those are values, relationships, communication, and then the fourth one we're going to save to the end is kind of a surprise. So we'll start out, we'll talk about values. And so when we talk about values, that is the very first common connection. Let me define it first. Values have to do with their guideposts, their principles that help us kind of lead our lives, make decisions. It influences our behavior, our attitude, how we treat people, all of that. Well, values, we all have them. You all have them, and so that's the common connection. We don't have to try to change each other's values or convince you that our values are better than someone else's. It's just we all have values, so we should just accept that. And if you're not sure what your values are, we'll give you some examples. So Abbey and I kind of populated our own little word cloud of what our values are, and I'm going to ask you to sort of do an inventory of the same. Think about what your values are. And so Abbey, go ahead and start.
Family.
Okay, and I'm going to say faith, fun.
Work ethic, work-life balance.
Okay.
Or work-life harmony.
Yes.
Money.
Okay. I'm also going to mention honesty, and I'll mention loyalty, safety, and hope. So that's a start. And so family isn't arbitrarily up there at the top, for any reason. So that is actually one of the most important values that people will cite. And so in a Pew Research study of 19,000 people across 17 advanced economies, it was the #1 value that people cited, family. And then in another research study, they found that 73% of the respondents said they would rather spend time with their family than anything else. Nothing else came even close to that. So that means that 73% of the people you know probably have that value, maybe with you, certainly with a lot of others. Abbey and I feel kind of qualified to talk about this because we're family, and we have a, kind of maybe a non-traditional family. And so we're going to talk about that. And I think we've had to work at it.
Sometimes I feel like I have to work harder than you.
I know you've said that, yeah. And so our family, I mentioned before, so we have, I've got 4 kids. I have 1 spousal unit. We have 2 kids that we share and 2 kids that we fully own, so that they have other siblings as well. And so they've all had to work at this and different relationships, and they all get along, not all the time, but they do get along. And I know that the reason that they do is because they value family. They know that that's important to them. And so what I'm going to say about that is, you know what, we get to define our family. We get to do that. So you might have had a very positive experience working for somebody where you had a work group that you really felt bonded with. Maybe you were on a sports team. You really felt bonded with them. So I have traditional family. I've got my kids. And I'm lucky enough that I have a group of friends who are, some of them are in the audience here tonight, who I went to school with decades ago. I'm not going to tell you how many decades. I know we're not blood related, but in heart, we are sisters, and in spirit, we are sisters, and we value that.
And I grew up watching my mom invest and celebrate in her friendships, and so I've prioritized carrying on that tradition in my own life.
And so what's the call to action? Just know your values, know that other people have them, and start with that common connection.
And so now we'll move on to the second connection, relationships. So let's start by looking for some connections.
Okay.
So how many of you have kids? Okay. And just to make sure we're all inclusive, because not all of us raised our hands, how many of you ever were a child? And maybe still feel like you kind of are. But if you could hope one thing for your children, or what your parents hope for you, what would it be? Happiness, success, wealth?
Yes.
Harvard University conducted one of the largest and longest longitudinal studies. It started in 1938, and its intent was to determine what made people feel happy and fulfilled. One of the top findings, which was apparently a little bit unexpected at the time, was the importance of relationships. Relationships mattered more than anything else, including money and power and wealth. Specifically, the study emphasized the importance of high-quality relationships. It's not about quantity. So how do we find these high-quality relationships? I know that might feel a little bit intimidating for some of us if we think about cultivating a meaningful new connection, especially when we think about maybe forming a new friendship or finding a work BFF, starting a romance. The reality is that even the most extroverted person has had awkward encounters. And then there's the rest of us. 51% of the population are introverts. And so that probably means it takes us a little bit more energy to form those relationships. Personally speaking, as a sales professional, I have had to work really hard at building authentic relationships, and that's been critical to my career growth. It's definitely taken a lot of effort, but what I've found is that the skill set has been very transferable to my personal life and rewarding. I've found that if I can approach new people with an enthusiasm to understand their perspective, not only will they feel valued, but it'll form a strong foundation for a relationship to grow upon. And so here's a quick tip. If you want to cultivate a new connection, take interest in the other person. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. Listen, be curious, and have empathy.
And I love the be curious and have empathy. And if you think about an absence of positive relationships in your life, what's the opposite, the dichotomy of that? Unfortunately, it's loneliness. And nobody wants loneliness. And what we know about loneliness is that it makes us sad, it can make us sick, cause stress. And there's research out there that will even say it could reduce our life expectancy. And so that's yet one other big reason to say we don't want to focus on differences, because we don't want to make people feel alone or make them feel lonely.
So our call to action here is to be others oriented. Approach new people and new relationships with an eagerness to form positive quality relationships. And not only will that help you personally, but as you bring that to others, you could actually be saving somebody's life.
The research tells us that. And so our third connection, one of my favorite topics, communication. And so we can communicate about a lot of things. And so I'm going to do a little test here with communication and just start out by asking you, how many of you have pets? Okay, real pets like dogs. Pretend pets like cats. Oh, just kidding. Okay, don't want to create a hostile audience here. Just kidding on that. And so we know that you communicate with your pets, and I know you would tell me that they communicate with you, right? And so if you look at, pets and you take a look at them, yeah, we know if they're naughty, if they're hungry, if they have to go potty, if they're sad, we know that. And we know when they're happy. Clearly we know when they're happy. And they're pretty much happy whenever we come to see them. Come home from work, they're greeting you at the door, they're happy, smiling. Even if you were late, even if you forgot to feed them, right? Don't you wish all of our humans would do the same thing? And so, yeah, let's talk about humans, starting with tiny humans. Yeah, like what do those crying baby faces mean? Are they sad? Are they lonely? Are they wet? Oh, don't know. It's not immediately clear. And then we go to, toddlers and those big feelings that toddlers have. And then we go to preteens and teenagers. Yes, imagine being outnumbered in your household with those, at one time. Yeah. And then finally, we end up with full-size adult humans. Bosses, coworkers, clients, customers, spousal units. It's confusing. So human communication, communicating with our humans can be very challenging, it can be confounding, it can be challenging. But guess what? We cannot not communicate. And so that's why you see communication courses and workshops popping up all over the place. Not just popping up, they've been there. They're in colleges, they're in universities, they're in corporate campuses, they're in organizations all around the world, because we know it's such an important skill. So debunk officially here on this stage today, it's not a soft skill, that's folklore. It's not. There's nothing soft and fluffy about it. It's a core skill. No more small talk, it's tall talk. And so what I'm going to suggest to you is that we can improve our communication. We should improve it. It helps us cultivate those relationships. I'm going to mention one competency, though, that I think is kind of overlooked, and that is listening. And I'm just going to ask, how many of you have ever taken a listening course? Right. There's not a lot out there. And so how many of you know people who should take a listening course? Don't tell me if they're in the audience, though, okay? So yes, and so that is a skill that we should be working on. Nobody ever says, oh, you listened to me way too much, right? And so isn't it interesting if you look at these two words that they have exactly the same letters in them? Yeah. And so when it comes to communication, what I'm going to say, our call to action should be, we need to do a better job of listening. We need to engage in conversation, and it should not be any more small talk. Let's go with all tall talk.
And here we are in our final and fourth connection, which is music. So don't worry, I'm not going to sing for you yet, at least. But music, it might feel a little bit random, but there's so many opportunities where music brings people together. Mm-hmm. First off, it's a universal language. And when we think about it in our own lives, I'm sure there's many of you who maybe play an instrument, definitely listen to music, maybe write music, sing professionally or at church or in the shower or in the car. We dance to music. It's in our daily lives. And so with music, we know that if we're participating in it, we're probably seeing some benefits. It improves our learning and memory. It can reduce anxiety and help regulate our mood. And it improves our overall heart health. Doctors at Johns Hopkins can actually see how music stimulates our brains through MRI scans. They found that the more complex the music, the greater the stimulus. And so maybe if you're preparing for an exam, choose Mozart. At the end of the day, we know that music brings people together. It is a way to connect with others. Think about attending concerts, church hymns, weddings, singing the national anthem. Overall, we know that it is a tool for us to be able to see benefits in finding shared connections with other people.
And bring us together.
It brings us together.
So the call to action would be, I would say, maybe start out, listen to music every day. Maybe start taking music lessons. It's never too late. Start small. I just bought a little ukulele, okay, self-disclosure. Maybe learn the lyrics to a song. And then my personal recommendation is we all should have a theme song when we walk into a room, like a baseball walk-up song.
So go out and shine the spotlight on the similarities that we share, not the differences. And remember the 4 connections that bring together the human Venn diagram.
Values, so know yours, know theirs, accept and respect.
Relationships, take interest in others, be curious and have empathy.
Communication, so listen to your humans, look at your humans, and breathe before you speak.
And embrace the music. Go out, sing and dance and share with others. And when we do this, we'll bring alive the human Venn diagram, and the possibilities are endless.